Every meaningful transformation begins with a question that seems deceptively simple. Why? Before we ever commit to a new habit, we have to ask ourselves what's really driving that desire. Is it pressure from the outside world? Is it comparison? Or is it something deeper, a vision for who we want to become? When we skip the why, we end up relying on willpower, and willpower, no matter how strong, has a limit. It can get you to the gym for a week, or help you eat clean for a few days, or keep you on a productivity streak for a month. But without purpose, even the best intentions unravel. The most transformative habits are the ones built on values, not trends. Knowing why you want to change gives you direction. It becomes your internal compass. The habit itself is just a vehicle. It's the why that fuels it. Let's say you want to wake up early. That's the habit. But why do you want that? If the answer is simply because someone on the internet said successful people wake up at 5 a.m., that won't last. But if your why is that you want to reclaim quiet time before the world demands your attention, or that you want to invest in your mental clarity before stepping into the day's noise, then that reason pulls you out of bed more consistently than any alarm clock can. The why attaches meaning to the action. Purpose transforms discipline into devotion. People often think successful individuals are more disciplined than everyone else, but that's not always true. The difference is that they've linked their habits to something that matters. They're not driven by guilt or shame. They're driven by vision. When you know why you're reading every day, journaling, eating mindfully, or unplugging from screens, it becomes less about checking boxes and more about becoming someone. That shift between doing and becoming is where the real magic happens. You stop obsessing over perfection and start falling in love with progress. You stop seeing habits as chores and start seeing them as commitments to yourself. A habit rooted in why also becomes resilient in the face of failure. When you miss a day or slip up, you don't spiral. You don't throw away the entire effort because you understand what you're working toward. There's grace in the process because the habit isn't the end goal. It's a means to something more enduring. The why reminds you that you're playing a long game, one where growth matters more than streaks. In that space, consistency becomes natural because it's aligned with your identity, not imposed by pressure. Think about how most people approach life change. They chase results. They want to lose weight, make more money, get more done. So they try habits that look good on the outside. They copy routines from influencers, download the same apps, follow the same top 10 lists. But without a why, those habits never take root. Because it's not about what someone else is doing. It's about what deeply matters to you. A habit built on someone else's priorities will always feel like friction. A habit built on your own values becomes flow, and your why doesn't have to be grand or poetic. It just has to be honest. Maybe you want to develop a habit of listening more attentively because you're tired of conversations that feel shallow. Maybe you want to start meditating because you've realized that stress is stealing your joy. Maybe you want to start budgeting not just to save money, but because you want to create more freedom in your future. These whys are rooted in intention, and intention leads to alignment. When your habits and values line up, you feel it. There's a sense of peace, of certainty, of inner strength, even when the results aren't immediate. That's the other thing. Starting with why helps you stay committed when progress is slow. Most change is invisible in the beginning. You don't see the benefits of drinking more water in a day. You don't feel the difference from one night of good sleep. But when your why is strong, you keep showing up. You trust the process. You're not just chasing quick wins. You're building a foundation. The power of starting with why is that it anchors you in patience. You're less likely to give up when the results don't arrive on your timeline because you're more invested in the person you're becoming than the metrics you're tracking. So, when considering any life-changing habit, always start by digging deeper. Ask yourself, why do I want this? What value does it reflect? What future does it support? Who am I becoming through this habit? That internal clarity becomes the engine behind every small decision. You're no longer moved by pressure or comparison. You're pulled by purpose, and that kind of internal alignment is what turns a habit into a way of life. We often think change has to be dramatic, that to turn our life around, we need to make massive shifts, overhaul our routines, or wake up one day a completely different person. But the truth is, real transformation is subtle, quiet, and often invisible at first. It doesn't announce itself, it sneaks up on you through the power of small, consistent actions. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. The seemingly insignificant disciplines, those daily choices that feel too small to matter, are the exact building blocks of who you become over time. When you start doing something small every day with intention, you're not just building a habit, you're building a new identity. If you journal for 5 minutes every morning, you're becoming someone who reflects. If you stretch every evening before bed, you're becoming someone who cares for their body. If you spend 15 minutes reading each night, you're becoming someone who values growth. These tiny commitments may not seem groundbreaking in the moment, but they begin to shape how you see yourself, and when your self-perception shifts, everything else follows. You begin to make decisions from a different place. You raise your standards, you change what you tolerate. You evolve not because you're forcing yourself to, but because you're acting in alignment with a new belief about who you are. We don't change our lives by flipping a switch. We change them by consistently turning the dial, 1 degree at a time, 1 step at a time, and over time, those steps compound. That's the power of the compound effect. It's not just financial. It's emotional, physical, relational. Every habit you stick with sends a signal to your brain about what matters to you, and the brain is listening. It's wiring and reinforcing those behaviors, making them easier to access, harder to ignore. With enough time and repetition, the habit becomes second nature. You no longer have to think about brushing your teeth or locking the door when you leave the house. That same automation can be built around things like gratitude, discipline, resilience. But it all starts with the smallest, most manageable action repeated consistently. Consistency is more important than intensity. Anyone can go hard for a few days. Anyone can have a productive week. But the people who truly change their lives are the ones who embrace sustainable rhythms. They don't try to do everything at once. They don't let motivation be their only fuel. They commit to the process even when it's boring, especially when it's boring, because they understand that repetition is what creates excellence. And that excellence isn't flashy. It's forged in the quiet hours when no one is watching. This approach also removes the pressure to be perfect. If small steps compound, then missing one day doesn't ruin everything. You're not starting from zero every time you stumble. You've already laid a foundation. You've already built momentum. And momentum is a powerful force. It carries you forward when motivation disappears. It gives you something to build on. It creates a sense of pride, not because you've achieved the goal yet, but because you're proving to yourself that you're someone who follows through. The beauty of small habits is that they're scalable. Once one becomes automatic, it opens the door for another. You don't have to do it all at once. You start with what's manageable, and you grow from there. And as you layer habits over time, they begin to reinforce each other. A morning routine makes you more focused throughout the day. Hydrating well improves your energy. Practicing gratitude shifts your mindset, which improves your relationships. One small change has ripple effects that reach far beyond what you expected. This isn't about becoming robotic or rigid. It's about designing your life in a way that supports who you want to be. It's about recognizing that every time you do something positive, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep showing up. And when you do, something powerful begins to happen. Your confidence grows, not because of external validation, but because of internal alignment. You start to believe in yourself, not based on potential, but based on action. You can't always control outcomes, but you can control your inputs. You can control what you feed your mind, how you treat your body, and how you manage your time. Those choices, repeated over time, shape your life, not overnight, not instantly, but inevitably. When you honor the small, you build something unshakable, something that lasts, something that becomes part of your identity. And in the end, that's what true change is about, not checking a box, but becoming someone new through daily decisions that align with who you were always meant to be. The environments we exist in, our physical spaces, our digital spaces, and most importantly, the people we surround ourselves with, have a greater influence on our behavior than we often realize. We like to believe we are creatures of will, that we act purely out of intention and drive. But the truth is, we are more often shaped by our systems than by our goals. We don't rise to the level of our ambition. We fall to the level of our design. Which means that if we want to build habits that stick, if we want to change our lives in a meaningful and lasting way, we have to start by looking at the spaces and systems that surround us. Take a look around your room, your workspace, your phone, your calendar. Every part of your environment either makes it easier or harder to do the things you say matter. If you say you want to read more, but your phone is always within reach and your books are hidden on a shelf, the friction is working against you. If you want to eat healthier, but your kitchen is stocked with processed snacks, your system is out of alignment with your goal. Willpower is a limited resource. It fades, but smart design lasts. When you intentionally shape your environment to make the right choices easier, you reduce your dependency on motivation. You start creating default patterns that support your desired behavior without needing to summon internal resistance each time. Designing your environment isn't just about removing temptation. It's also about adding cues for the kind of person you want to become. A yoga mat left out the night before increases the chance you'll stretch in the morning. A notebook on your nightstand and is a visual prompt to reflect before bed. Even the people you text the most are part of your environment. Are those conversations fueling your purpose or draining your energy? What you allow close to you shapes you, and sometimes changing your environment isn't just about rearranging furniture. It's about redefining boundaries. The power of proximity cannot be overstated. If you want to become more focused, more disciplined, more courageous, surround yourself with people who embody those qualities. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Being in proximity to growth-minded individuals changes how you think. It normalizes what once felt out of reach. You absorb their language, their habits, their energy, and conversely, staying in environments that pull you toward distraction, self-doubt, or stagnation makes change exponentially harder. You don't have to cut people off with harsh lines, but you do need to become more aware of how certain relationships affect your ability to stay aligned with your values. Design is also about how you use your time. If your calendar is filled with tasks that drain you, if your days are structured around urgency instead of intention, then even the best habits won't have space to grow. Life change isn't just about what you add, it's about what you edit. Sometimes the most powerful shift you can make is creating more white space, more room to breathe, more time to think, more margin to be deliberate. Your schedule is a mirror of your priorities, and if the reflection doesn't match your values, it's time to start designing differently. Technology plays a significant role in this too. The apps you install, the notifications you allow, the platforms you spend time on, they all impact your focus, your mood, your self-worth. If you're constantly being pulled into comparison loops or reaction cycles, it becomes almost impossible to stay grounded in your own journey. Designing a healthy digital environment might mean setting app limits, turning off alerts, or even restructuring your home screen to highlight tools over distractions. It's not about rejection, it's about recalibration. Even the rituals you create within your environment shape how you experience each day. Lighting a candle before you journal, playing music while you cook, keeping a gratitude jar by your desk. These little environmental triggers create a rhythm that makes it easier to stay connected to your values. They turn your space into a place of intention rather than reaction. You don't just live in your environment, you interact with it constantly, and every part of that interaction can either reinforce the life you want or pull you away from it. There's also something to be said for removing friction. If something takes too much effort to do regularly, even if it's good for you, your brain will default to the easier path. So instead of forcing yourself to do the hard thing every day, ask, how can I make this easier? If you want to eat healthy, meal prep. If you want to journal more, keep a pen nearby. If you want to call family more often, set a weekly reminder. These are design decisions. You're not lazy. You just haven't optimized for ease. And when good habits become easier to access, they become more consistent. And consistency always leads to transformation. Ultimately, when you choose to design your environment with care, with clarity, and with purpose, you create conditions where growth becomes natural. You build a life that supports your evolution instead of resisting it, and in that space, your habits stop being isolated tasks. They become part of the atmosphere. They live in the air you breathe, the people you engage with, the time you protect, the choices you automate. That's when change stops feeling like a struggle and starts becoming who you are. Most people try to change their habits by looking backward. They evaluate their routines based on who they've always been, how they've behaved in the past, what's felt comfortable, what they've failed at before. But if you're always measuring forward movement with rearview mirrors, you end up stuck in cycles that feel familiar but keep you small. Real transformation requires a shift in orientation. Instead of asking, what habits match who I've been? Start asking, what habits reflect who I want to become? Because lasting growth isn't about staying loyal to your history. It's about being faithful to your future. Think about it. Most of your current behaviors were shaped by survival, not vision. You developed certain patterns because they helped you get through something. You became overly busy because it made you feel valuable. You learned to procrastinate because it was safer than failing. You avoided hard conversations because you thought peace meant silence. These habits, though understandable, aren't sustainable for the person you're becoming. They served a version of you that no longer fits. And at some point, you have to decide that comfort is less important than growth. When you begin choosing habits from your future rather than your past, something powerful happens. You stop reacting and start designing. You stop living from memory and start living from imagination. Let's say the future you is healthy, confident, grounded, and generous. What does that person do on a daily basis? Do they wake up with intention? Do they make time for reflection? Do they speak kindly to themselves? Do they invest energy in relationships that are reciprocal? That future version of you already exists. You just haven't caught up to them yet. And the way you catch up isn't by waiting for change to happen. It's by embodying it now. This doesn't mean faking it. It means acting from alignment, not from impulse. It means saying, even though I don't feel like this new version of me yet, I'm going to show up like them anyway. Behavior precedes identity. When you consistently act like someone who values themselves, even when it feels unfamiliar, your brain catches on. It begins to believe what you demonstrate, and over time, your actions lead your mindset, not the other way around. There's a kind of internal resistance that shows up when you try to live from your future. It whispers things like this isn't you, or who do you think you are? That resistance isn't the truth. It's just your nervous system reacting to unfamiliar territory. Growth feels awkward at first because you're building new neurological and emotional patterns. But discomfort is not danger. It's the friction that comes from becoming. And pushing through that discomfort is where identity begins to rewire itself. One of the most underrated parts of creating future-aligned habits is permission. You have to give yourself permission to outgrow your old self. That might mean leaving behind dynamics that feel safe but are no longer supportive. It might mean saying no more often or showing up in rooms where you're not the most experienced person. It might mean being misunderstood or even criticized for shifting directions. But the cost of staying stuck in a version of you that was shaped by fear is far greater than the discomfort of stepping into your next level. You are not responsible for keeping the past comfortable. You are responsible for honoring your evolution. When you start living from your future, your decision-making becomes clearer. You stop wasting energy on choices that don't align. You become more intentional with your time, your energy, your relationships. You say yes with conviction and no without guilt, because every choice is either casting a vote for the life you want, or the one you're trying to leave behind. You start designing your day not around urgency or habit, but around values and vision. That's the difference between surviving and thriving, and here's the beauty. The more you operate from your future, the faster that future arrives. You collapse the gap between where you are and where you're going. Instead of striving, you start becoming. Instead of chasing, you start creating. Your habits begin to reflect not just your goals, but your identity. You're no longer hoping for change, you're embodying it. This approach also rewires how you measure success. You stop needing external validation to feel progress. Instead of asking, "Did I hit the goal?" you start asking, "Did I honor my future self today?" That's a different kind of scoreboard. It's more honest, more sustainable, and far more meaningful, because goals can move. Metrics can fluctuate, but your future self, the person you're growing into, is a compass that never lies. Eventually, the gap between who you were and who you're becoming starts to close. Your habits stop feeling like a stretch and start feeling like your baseline. Your mindset catches up to your behavior. You begin to trust yourself. Not because everything is perfect, but because your life finally reflects your purpose. Your habits aren't just things you do. They're proof of the person you've decided to become. And when your habits align with your future, that future stops being a fantasy and starts becoming your reality.